celebrating today. I call it a celebration because 10 years on, we're all gathered here to listen to a lecture, hear about his ideals, which the OISA Foundation has decided that they would continue to propagate. We also know that he wrote some books, and one of the books, they here on display. And by the way, if you go on eBay, that book is being sold for $104 without freight. In the Nigeria of today, that is over 60,000 naira. We are selling here much, much less. Having said that, I would like us to please sit back and watch a video that attempts to encompass the life and times of this great man. Are we ready?
Oba Oladele Olashore, Ajagbusi Ekun, Aloko of Iloko, Iloko Ijesha, one of the most hardworking, successful, and enduring entrepreneur of our generation, a patriotic Nigerian, compassionate humanitarian, who was well known throughout the country for a variety of reasons. To some as a banker, a dedicated traditional ruler, a philanthropist, and to others, the founder and proprietor of Olashore International School. He was born on the 18th of February 1935 into the Ajagbusi Ekun Royal Dynasty, Iloko Ijesha, Osun State, by the late Oba Samuel Oyerinde Olashore and Madam Lydia Bolatito Olashore. He attended Offa Grammar School for his secondary education from 1951 to 1956. He then proceeded to Kumasi College of Technology, Ghana, on scholarship to read a course in Secretaryship Administration from 1959 to 1961, and Leeds College of Commerce, England, for his master's from 1961 to 1963. Oba Oladele Olashore started his career as an accountant for British Petroleum Nigeria Limited from 1964 to 1967. He then went on to become the Director of Banking Supervision and Chief Bank Examiner for the Central Bank of Nigeria from 1967 to 1980. From 1980 to 1984, he was the Managing Director of the International Bank for West Africa Limited, and from 1984 to 1987, he was the Managing Director of the First Bank of Nigeria Limited, and since 1998, he has been the Chief Executive Officer of Lead Consult Limited, a financial and management consulting firm. In 1993, he was named Secretary of Finance and was installed as the 19th Oba of Iloko Ijesha on the 28th of February 1997. Oba Olashore's accomplishment in office as king puts persons in positions of leadership on the spot. The surviving developmental activities and the enduring legacies he left in the brief period of just 15 years from 1997 to 2012 stand as testimonies. Before he ascended the throne, he was an avid fundraiser for the town's development. He injected into the people a self-development spirit that is hard to find elsewhere. A befitting palace for the king of Iloko, a market, a town hall, a community health center are some of the self-help projects Olashore promoted long before he became king. And after he became king, he threw his personal wealth, influence, experience, foresight, and ingenuity into recreating the society. Cottage industries came up during his tenure to employ people within the locality. Some of these include a bakery, several horticultural endeavors, and a garment-making factory. But the star attraction to Iloko is the Olashore International School, which has been beneficial to the community in multifarious ways. The creation of the institution in his hometown of Iloko has resulted in community development and has placed the community on the global map. One of Nigeria's foremost bankers, former Secretary, Minister of Finance, and the owner of Olashore International School, a reputable private school, the late Oba Oladele Olashore was honored many times for his professional competence, patriotism, and community service. He was the founder and chairman of Lead Group of Companies. He was the managing director of the International Bank of West Africa, IBWA, and First Bank in 1987. His peers nominated him as the Banker of the Year. He also authored, among others, Policy Issues on Nigerian Banking and Economic Management, Perspective on Finance, Banking and Economic Policy in Nigeria. Apart from his managerial responsibilities, the late Oba Oladele Olashore is a winner of several merit awards and patron to several progressive youth associations. His home and offices are adorned with plaques and certificates of recognition from various professions, industries, and across the globe. He was a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, a Fellow of the Chartered Association of Certified Accountants, a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administration, a Fellow member of the Nigerian Institute of Management. He also belonged to the Lagos Boat Club, the Lagos Tennis Club, the Island Club, and the Ikoyi Club in Lagos State. One thing is evident: the life of late Oba Olashore continues to inspire us in the areas of discipline, professionalism, and commitment to excellence.
So without further ado, I'd like to invite to give the official welcome address, Princess Mrs. Olakpeju Shofowora.
Good morning. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this memorial lecture to mark the 10th anniversary of the passing of our father and the monarch, Oba Oladele Olashore, CON, the Ajagbusi Ekun Royal of Iloku Ijesha, Osun State. I wish to acknowledge the presence and welcome him, the representative of the Vice President, Mr. Dapo Ade Oshun, SAN. Our guest lecturer first, Mr. Fola Adiola, OFR MNI, founder, Faith Foundation, and our special guests, Chief Joseph Sanusi, CON, and Prince Julius Ajagbusi Ekun, OFR. Thank you, sirs, for honoring our invitation and our late father. A shout out to the management and staff of Standard Chartered Bank, led by the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Lamin Majad. You are all welcome to this event. To manage time, permit me to avoid mentioning the names of all special and esteemed guests, as I recognize and welcome all Kabiesi's friends, colleagues, and chiefs. Thank you very much for standing by us and honoring him today. Captains of industries and sectors here present, government functionaries here present, and members of late Kabiesi's enlarged family, our friends and well-wishers, you are all welcome. The decision to have a memorial lecture in honor of our late father is to enable us highlight and bring to fore the urgent need for us to collaborate and cooperate with one another to serve our fatherland, as our late father demonstrated passionately in his lifetime, and to showcase what he stood for, accomplished, and how we have carried on with his legacy. Kabiesi's commitment to serve was legendary. He used all his resources and influence to get things done at the national, state, local, and particularly in his domain, Iloku Ijesha, where he lived comfortably in the last 17 years before he passed. We, his children, were not spared, as we were co-opted into implementing his many visions by providing structures to facilitate the implementation of his various initiatives. Kabiesi was so many things to different people, as he championed one cause or another for diverse people seeking him out in Iloku, enabling access to justice, creating opportunities and employment for all and sundry. He facilitated development within Osun State and his community by engaging civil servants constantly and contractors within the federal and state ministries to ensure budgeted programs and projects within the state are implemented and necessary infrastructures constructed. To the Anglican Communion, he was the grand patron of the Ijesha North Diocese in recognition of his service to the church. And as a royal father, he was the Southwest coordinator of the National Council of Traditional Rulers of Nigeria. Unfortunately, today, the uncertainties within the Nigerian nation have caused us, many of us, to be distracted and or incapacitated from actualizing our visions for a better society. We pray that as we celebrate Oba Olashore's legacy for service, we will rekindle the hope that our country can rise above the many challenges facing it, if we individually take up the initiative to serve our communities and indeed our country truthfully and selflessly. On this note, I welcome everybody to this memorial lecture, and I wish you a rewarding time with us. Good morning.
She actually also is chairman or chairperson board of trustees of the OISA Foundation. So she wears 2 caps today. This time, I would like to invite to give his goodwill address. Unfortunately, the chairman's opening remarks, we had a bit of a logistics issue, and the chairman, Ambassador Shehu Malami, CON, is not able to join us. But as the master of ceremony, who has the symbol of power as his microphone, I would like to skip straight on and invite someone who I would describe as the contemporary of His Royal Majesty, Oba Oladele Olashore. And I'll tell you why. Oba Olashore was in Central Bank, and the person I'm inviting was a governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Oba Olashore was also in First Bank, and so was he. Oba Olashore was indeed chairman of Standard Chartered Bank, and so was he. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a resounding round of applause, I would like to welcome Chief Dr. Joseph Sanusi, CON.
Good morning, everybody. It looks like yesterday. Kabiyesi was with us. And today, we are celebrating him as a great icon. Kabiyesi, before he became Kabiyesi, we used to call him Gili. And it's interesting that we both have the same respect. We worked together in the Central Bank of Nigeria as senior officers. He was in the Banking Supervision Department, and I was in the Banking Operations Department. Well, I'm sorry, I have missed the protocol. I would have said that they usually say in Nigeria, all protocols observed. But I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that without mentioning our dear Vice President, who has graciously sent to us a very senior man in his office, his son, as his representative. You are welcome. To continue my presentation, Oba Olashore, even though he was in the bank examination department and we were in different departments, we became friends by virtue of our being in the same profession, accountancy. At that time, Central Bank recruited a lot of accountants in the Central Bank of Nigeria. And the most senior among us was F.K. Banjo. Next to him was Oba Olashore. But when F.K. Banjo left the bank, Oba Olashore became our leader. And he was a very good leader because he got all of us together as a council. And he provided excellent leadership. One thing that struck me about Oba Olashore, or Dele, I should call it, I'm sorry, forgive me the look, was that he's always thinking of the interest of others. Individually, he would think of what is your interest. The first thing he did, a few years in the bank, all of us were married except one. And Oba Olashore took it on himself to ensure that we find a suitable partner for this, our friend. Because this, our friend, was always saying, I can't find a good girl, so I'm not ready to marry. He said, you are going to get married. And then he made me an accomplice and succeeded in finding a suitable partner for this, our friend. What is important in what I'm saying is the level of interest and passion which Olashore shows in the interest of others. He was the most senior of us. He became director of banking supervision. And in banking supervision department, he created a new spirit in the banking supervision department by making sure that he took special interest in his own staff. He believed that an institution will be as strong as the personnel that are in that department. And Oba Olashore, we always make sure that the usual time it takes for promotion, he tried to make banking supervision very special. And because of his leadership and his respect among the fellow directors, whatever Oba Olashore wanted for his staff was done for them. And therefore, they held him very high. He was very courageous. Whatever he had to get for his staff, he would get it up to the committee of governors level. And he was respected because of his performance and his ability to convince and get people to listen to him. So Kabesi was a great leader. By all standards, he was a remarkable person. And to talk more about his relations to people. I must confess here and now and give credit to Oba Olashore about his own impact on my own career, personally as a person. When I was first in the Central Bank of Nigeria, I think about 1975, I was already a director of banking supervision, that's banking operations. I thought I reached the head of my career in the Central Bank. So I wanted to get out of the bank. I had secured an appointment. They had shown me the house I was going to move into. I didn't tell anybody because I just want to move. You see that, my beautiful angel there? We have been married now for 50-something years. And for those years, he has never reported me to anybody. The exception was Oba Olashore. When I told my wife I was leaving Central Bank, he kept quiet. We went to see the house I was going to move into. He didn't say anything. Then he went to Oba Olashore and said, "This is what your friend wants." And he phoned me from his office. He said, "Joe, Dele, what do you think you are doing? Where are you going? Think about it again." Thank God, I thought about it and changed my mind. And the second occasion was when I was in the UBA. I thought I was doing a great job in the UBA. I was trying to make the bank the biggest and the best in the country, UBA. And suddenly, I heard on the television that I had been moved to First Bank of Nigeria. I didn't want to go to First Bank. And because as at that time, First Bank had a problem because of something, and it made a big loss, and First Bank had a bad reputation in the market. So I didn't want to go. Immediately the announcement was made. Ajagbusi called me. He said, "Congratulations." What type of congratulations? I was doing a beautiful job in First Bank, and I want to continue in UBA, and I want to continue it. I'm not moving to First Bank. Instead of moving to First Bank, I would rather find another job. He said, "Don't be silly. Don't you think it's better for you to go to First Bank when it's at its lowest? Reorganize it and make it a better bank?" Glory to God. That was exactly what I did. So I went to First Bank, and by the time I was leaving First Bank, I think it was a glorious exit because I raised the standard of First Bank, and it became truly first. So if you see those two occasions in my life, if I had not been the FD First Bank, it was most unlikely that I would have gone to Central Bank. So I owe Oba Oladele Olashore a great gratitude. I'm saying it in the presence of you all. There is no business that is more noble in the world than the business of getting other people to sell. And that was one of the things that Oba Olashore did. When he was to start in local school, we were together in Washington. And he said, "Dele, this is my vision. I want to build a big school in my place, blah, blah, blah. And we spent a whole Saturday in Washington going through schools in Washington to see standard of what we want the school to be. And we succeeded. Not only did we get connected with schools in Washington, Oba Olashore came and established the Olashore International School, which we have there. So he had always had a vision of the way to help humanity. And today, I feel proud of what he has been able to achieve at Olashore International School. You see, in this world, you see some noble families. You wonder why the children of some of those noble families become noble, and the children of some other noble families do not do as well. I will give you the two examples of two presidents of America. JFK, Roosevelt. The sons of JFK are all successful. On the other hand, the sons of the family of Roosevelt were not as successful. And the difference is attention to children. There is a story that the Roosevelt Jr. wanted to see his father. And the style is that none of his son of that president will see him unless they take an appointment. This son was anxious to see him, and therefore he could not take an appointment. And when he got to his father, the father was already working on his desk. And he started narrating his problem to the father. The father didn't give him much attention. And when he finished narrating his story, he said to the father, just said, "Oh, thank you for coming by." And that was the end of the discussion. Compare this with the ferocious attention which JFK gives to his children. JFK said, "My family is my business, and my business is my family." So because of this, he told us that when he was, that's JF Kennedy Jr., when he was in secondary school, his father would find time to see him. So it was a tradition of the family that they take care of their children. And so is the man we are celebrating today, Oba Olashore. He's passionate about his children. And he takes all the time. When we were younger, when we travel, Oba Olashore, when he travels, he comes and buys presents for my children. And when I do, things like raincoat and what is for school children, school bag and so on. Right? And I do the same thing. I give the same type of attention to children. Today, we can see the difference. We could not have been here today except the way Oba Olashore has brought up his children. Bimbo, grateful for what you have done to the family with your sibling, Princess Peju. God will bless you. and your siblings. You are doing well. You have made the family proud. Oba Olashore has left. He has served humanity. And on this note, I'm saying that Kabiyesi came through this world to teach self-reliance, love, compassion, and inspiration. May his good soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you very much. I thank all of you for coming here. I was inspired by the prayer of our pastor, Mr. Simide. I think he has said the type of thing our guest, our honored person today will have said. You know the trouble he got into by speaking to power when he was the MD of Facebook. But instead of allowing what happened to him at that time to disturb him, it inspired him. And he became an entrepreneur. And that is how he was able to establish the lead group, which Limbo has managed creditably. So Oba Olashore is carefully for his family. One failure is not a death sentence. He will give the children opportunity to grow from whatever we felt they have not done right. And they have always surprised us by the way they had performed and became credit to the family. So I wish you God's blessing that you continue to grow. Bimbo was with me. I was asking, will you turn international school to university? He said, that is not my intention. We are impacting people at the grassroots. And that is exactly what we want to continue to do. So I wish you well. Sorry, I know that Kabiyesi wants to do the best he could for his community. He's passionate about it. And he did not just want to have the international school there that will not make impact on the local. One day, I was with him. He was upset that he wanted an local boy admitted to Olashore International School. And the principal told him no, because the standard of that boy was not that. He got annoyed. Fortunately, I came at that time. And when I got there, he was telling me, sorry, look at this principal. I employed him now. He will not take it. I said, obviously, you know what? What that principal has done is exactly what he should have done. Then we then agreed, what do we do to be able to integrate the primary schools in the local to the international school? And what we agreed that day was exactly what he did. He decided to take up a school in that place as his own school and make sure the standard of children in that school makes them able to compete, to be able to enter Olashore International School. And where the people, such people cannot get funds to be able to pay for that school, he gave them scholarship. So he is a great man. There's nothing we do that can be too much for Oba Oladele Olashore. So God bless you all. And as you come, we go back.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call on a very Herculean task, but I will try to give the lecture 10th year memorial in honor of His Royal Majesty Oba Oladele Olashore, CON, is a man who has done so much that his quiet mien does not really tell what he has done. We should respect knowledge. We should respect people who keep on performing, giving, and ensuring that the less privileged are always remembered. I know you will all know, if I mention his name, his involvement with Guaranty Trust Bank. But today, I would simply like to introduce him as the chairman and founder of the Faith Foundation, Mr. Fola Adeola, OFRMNI.
Nothing beats authenticity. And when we were listening to, if you will allow me to call him that, Joseph Oladele Sanusi, talking about Oladele Olashore, I wonder why the need for an anniversary lecturer again. And for a man to describe his friend passionately, he didn't even know where to start. Go on talking about Oladele Olashore. What I want to say is that Joseph Oladele Sanusi needn't worry. There is so much to be said about you. So much. And so much is being said about you in your lifetime, in your presence, away from you. And as you gave testimony today, I want this entire audience to know that my own life's trajectory may have been different, why not for Joseph Oladele Sanusi. Who issued me the banking license, number 52. For that noble institution, fondly referred to as Guaranty Trust Bank. And soon after he issued me with the license, maybe a week or two, he drew the line and stopped issuing licenses. I almost didn't make it. Thank him for me. And to link that up, because I started in phase 2. We were all young men plying our trade in merchant banking, working with the Americans. The commercial bankers didn't go for banking licenses. It was the merchant bankers that went for them. We were working under the Americans, whether you were Naomi, or Chase, or Nam, or Icon, or Nambul, they were all owned by the Americans. And I guess that sense of entrepreneurship to the north. And I was working in Continental, which was Chase. And I got the first invitation to come and set up a bank, to come and run a bank for some people. And I panicked. And I said to myself, these people are dangerous, so they want to kill me. I'm not ready to run a bank. So I declined. Another group called, And I was still in that same frame of mind, and I didn't take up the appointment. One evening, I got a call from Oba Oladele Olashore. Guess what? He wasn't offering me bank MD. He was offering me bank ED. Then I said to myself, me that have been offered MD by everybody, somebody is now offering me ED. And I thought my stock was declining. So I said, you know what? This is where you are going to sit. And the next person that calls you will offer you general manager. Why are you waiting for them to offer you? Why? There are men of money who want to come and run their bank for you because they think you know something. Go and put your papers together and see whether you can actually set up a bank in the true sense of what the likes of Oladele Olashore and Joseph Sanusi stood for. And that was the beginning of the journey. I know you hear stories, but this was the story. And that was the trajectory. But that's not why I was asked to come here today. But there is nowhere and there is no place, no matter how large or how small, that I will run into Joseph Oladele Sanusi and I will not start with him. He doesn't like it. I like it. And we have both decided that, okay, I will do my own. Let him do his own. Thank you, sir. The topic of the lecture is public service as the best form of service, the example of Oba Oladele Olashore. And I'd like to start by thanking the Olashore family for the honor they have bestowed in inviting me to speak on this occasion, commemorating the life and legacy of their father, of their son, of their brother, and of their monarch, the late Oba Oladele Olashore, who joined his ancestors on the 1st of June 2012, and particularly to speak on the theme of public service, about which the late Kabiyesi was deeply passionate and to which he was deeply committed. First, as a public office holder himself, then as a private citizen, and eventually as a monarch, serving up his entire person on ascending the throne of his ancestors. We are here to remember a great man, to learn from his passions, and to refine our own. The wording of the invitation and a recent experience at another commemorative event that I recently attended led me to draw a bridge between the twin themes of legacy and public service. And so, I would like to begin this short address by saying to us that while it is inevitable that we will die, every single one of us, a life of service, as exemplified by the late Kabiyesi Olashore, offers us a unique path by which we may pay death, his debt, and yet transcend our mortality. It is an individual and collective loss to our society that so few of us choose to fully explore. Let me pause again. I guess something that has to do with people of my stock. We always miss where to start. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Olayemi Oluleke Osibajo, SAN, GCON, ably represented by the managing partner of Simon Cooper, Tipo, Akiosho. All other protocols observed. I hope you remembered where I paused. It is my firm conviction that public service, and by this I mean the dedication of the self to a cause or purpose beyond oneself for the good of the public or for the good of the people, offers to all who have the means, who have the sincerity of purpose and the grace to truly commit themselves to it. A path to immortality that death, as we know it, has no power to erode. Why am I convinced of this? Because those of us who are alive have the privilege of being witnesses to the legacies of those who are no longer with us. Those in whose memories we convene and of whose names we continue to speak are typically those who left a mark in the lives of others and in the service of their communities of influence. Not those who looked out solely for themselves, however lucrative that path may have been for them in their lifetimes. I mentioned earlier a commemorative event I recently attended. On that occasion, the speaker, in reference to the demise of the late gentleman about whom he was speaking, made a statement about the sun having set on the subject's life. It is an expression we hear often, but for some reason, it struck me on that occasion, not just as untrue, but in the particular case of the person he was talking about, possibly as a disservice of the sun. Innately, I knew that characterization was inaccurate, and I might have squinted in disagreement. I cannot be sure. But for the most part, I packed it away, giving it thought, but not voice, until now. It is now, having drawn a clear bridge that I have between legacy and public service, as I thought through what I might say on receiving the invitation to speak here, that I'm putting words to my dissatisfaction. With the fleeing sunset analogy, it is very simply this: I do not believe that the sun ever really sets on the lives of those who serve, truly serve the public interest. And today is one such example. Rather, their service births a new dawn in the lives of those served, that the death of a servant leader can neither snuff out nor dim. What can dim? Perhaps even extinguish that dawn is the failure of those of us who come after them to make a tradition of continuing in that part of service. Hear me. Death does not set the sun on great public servants, but we who are left behind can, and often do, by failing to carry forward the torch of service. It is we, the living, who snuff out the legacies of death that have risen in our midst. True public service, the kind we ought to strive to cultivate and engender in the society, the kind I have no doubt the late Kabisi exemplified in choosing to serve his people, is not selfish. It is not vain. It elevates the cause over the servant and the public good over the interest of a few, and by its very nature lends itself to continuity. Too often, we talk about giving back. The instinct to be a beneficiary of our own goodness takes root. Good causes become vanity projects, branded by the leader and owned by none other. It is a natural instinct, but one we must learn to curb by focusing as much on the public as we do on the service. Don't misunderstand me. credit will always gravitate where credit is due. And it is right and proper that it should. We are here today celebrating a man who has been gone for a decade. Credit will stick where it is earned. But it is also right and proper that those who give back understand that true service, and by extension, the immortality it has to power to confer, rests in embracing the unnatural habit of starving one's ego and shining the light on the cause. By gently sipping on the elixir of self-denial, in pursuit of the greater good, men and women have the power to truly transcend the non-negotiable mortality that must eventually claim our bodies, but needing set the sun on who we are and what we are about. Oba Olashore cared about education, particularly quality secondary education. And beyond just caring, he set up a secondary school that offers scholarships to young people who will otherwise have been unable to afford such an education. In their lives and the lives of everybody, each of those children goes on to impact. Oladele Olashore defied death. Olashore cared about his people and his heritage. So, when the duty call came and he was chosen to ascend the throne of his ancestors, he did so with the same duty and commitment as he has been a banking regulator and later a bank MD, and in the many ways that he modernized the throne of Iloko Jesha and the outlook of the people of Iloko Jesha. Oba Olashore's legacy has remained undimmed by his transition. I want to challenge each of us to strive to be about something that is greater than ourselves. The alternative is to be about nothing that can stand the sunset test, and to continue to live in and live behind a society in which dawn never endures. This admonition will seem to have particular relevance within the context of public service at this time, with our elections upon us. But in my view, it is a watchword for all seasons and a reminder that public service needn't be bundled with public office, although the latter should never be detached from the former. The late Kabiesi's record of service traversed public office. It traversed private life and monarchical duty. It is possible to serve in every sphere of our lives if we choose to. But first, a quick word about public office, since it ought to be the sphere with the most obvious link to public service. Ought not the filters through which both contestants and appointees present themselves to promote their suitability for office not be premised on their commitment to serving the public good, and ought not our assessment of them and decision to entrust them with our votes and our support not be premised on our sincere belief in their conviction and commitment? I ask this, not unmindful of the fact that our political landscape may still be far from a world of ought nots, but because whether idealistic or not, the truth requires telling. There is too little service, too little commitment to the public good in our public office holders and aspirants. And it is a failing that all of us are complicit in enabling. And because of it, it is little wonder that our society continues to be eluded by the dawn we so desperately need. But I don't want to turn this into a political address. It is a human learning interaction about the condition of our own hearts, individually and collectively. And the compass for that learning and introspection on this occasion is the legacy of the Kabiesi Oladele Olashore. and his passion for a path that has led him to defy death. And I'm here to tell us, he's open to all of us here if we dare to lean forward with our ideals and leave our vanities on the back burner. We can learn from Oba Olashore's example. And let us be reminded, ladies and gentlemen, that we need hold public office to render service to our society. Service sits at the intersection of three elements only: need, will, and capacity. None of this requires a title or the votes of delegates. Everyone can serve. The first element, need. There is certainly no dearth of need in our society. To deny this is to be so disturbingly detached that our humanity must be called into question. There can be no doubt either that there is capacity in our midst between our human capabilities and the pockets of the affluence, even amidst the staggering poverty in our society. Surely capacity exists. The question for all of us, therefore, is there the will? And how strong is that will? Is it strong enough to follow an inner voice in the direction of an identified need? Is it strong enough to lead where no clear solution currently exists? Is it strong enough to continue the work of another to overcome the urge to reinvent wheels at the direction of ego? Is it strong enough to dedicate our resources, our time, our capabilities? Is it strong enough to surrender the I for the public, knowing that I is an integral letter in the word public anyway, and that the good of all ultimately encompasses the good of I? Is it strong enough to recognize that it is myopia that causes us to think of ourselves and our society as parallel paths, and that the corrective lenses of reason and our collective humanity are the spectacles through which we must retrain our eyes to see them as convergent? Is it strong enough? That is the will. To know that to build on the legacy of another is both an act of continuity and an act of courage? These are the questions we must ask ourselves. My hope is that each of us can dig deep. Dig deep enough to answer yes to every one of those questions. Because for every one of us that does, another candle lights towards the dawn of a better society. For every one of us that adds our candle in cooperation with another, our small candles become torches. Light can flood this land if we embrace the idea that we can all be public servants or act in public good. And for those who dare to lead the charge, death truly loses its sting because they have stood for something that is greater than themselves and endures their finite lifetimes. Let me bring it home. Today, we have gathered to celebrate the legacy of Oba Olashore. What victory, honestly, what victory has death won over the essence of a man who will still continue to speak of in glowing terms 10 years on? To serve, ladies and gentlemen, is not to have lived in vain and not to ever really die. Those of us who are here alive remain at liberty to choose whether the sun sets in our lives and on those that serve before us, or whether new dawns will be raised by our conscious individual and collective decisions to serve. I like to say this another way. Death really needn't be the end. And it hasn't been for the man we're here to celebrate. The school he founded lives on the jobs he created, live on the local Jesha community continues to speak of his leadership and commitment. I digress. I was on a study tour of a part of the United Kingdom called South Yorkshire and Humberside. For those who know the UK, Sheffield, Hull, that area. And one day, along with 9 of my colleagues, 10 of us in the Land Rover, the driver was taking us somewhere. And it was getting more and more remote as we were going. All of a sudden, he saw the M sign for McDonald's. And he said, oh, thank God it's on the map. Yeah. Wherever you saw McDonald's, that city was on the map. For those of us who are born in this part of the world, Lagos, who schooled here, who worked here, Oladele Olashore put Iloko on the map. And beyond his family, it continues to be celebrated. Ladies and gentlemen, the curtains needing close on our lives. Each of us can be a powerful act in a never-ending play of purpose, of passion, and of progress. Or can be a forgotten solo act in an unremembered soliloquy. Oba Oladele Olashore chose his own path. We each must choose ours. I want to wish us all the wisdom and the courage to do what is right, to do what is necessary, and to do what will endure. Before I finish, I would like to tell you about a musician from Ilorin. He's since gone. His name, for those who go into the deep traditional genre, was Odolaye Aremu. Familiar? I mean, not quite Davido. It's okay. Odolaye Aremu used to chat while singing. And the point in reference here was, he said, wọ́n ní ikú ológun. He was telling his audience that death had no antidote. And then Odolaye said he protested. Mo ní ikú lóògùn irọ́ ni. Odolaye kí lóògùn kú? Kí bàbá ó kú kí ọmọ máa ṣe ilé ayé lọ. I would like anybody and everybody in this audience that carries the Olashore blood, either in name or through marriage or through a local, can you just rise before I finish? All of you. All of you. And if you can just turn a bit and let people see you. And before you sit, may I invite the audience to join me in this short song that the Yorubas sing. Ó dára bí ó dára, bó dára bí ó dára, ẹ wá wẹ̀yìn bàbá o. Ẹ wá wẹ̀yìn bàbá o. Thank you very much. I thank you for listening. Thank you.
I think that anniversary lecture deserves a resounding round of applause, please. Please. Never a dull moment with Mr. Fola Adeola. Never a dull moment. Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Fola Adeola. We really appreciate you giving the anniversary lecture. We have no doubt whatsoever that we were all deeply engaged. Thank you. We did mention a while back that Oba Oladele Olashore was chairman, Standard Chartered Bank. And as is evident by the representation that we have had at this event, it goes without saying that his times at Standard Chartered Bank as chairman was indeed one that they still remember and will continue to remember. Please give a resounding round of applause, first of all, to Standard Chartered Bank for all they did to assist us in putting this together. And then I will go on and invite the CEO, Standard Chartered Bank, Mr. Lamin Manjang, to please step forward and give the sponsor's message.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, MC. His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, represented by Mr. Dapo, our former chairman of Standard Chartered Bank, Chief Joseph Sanusi, former governor of the Central Bank, the guest lecturer, Fola Adeola, fellow banker, the family of the late Oba Olashore, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon to you all. It's a great pleasure for me to stand here as a sponsor of this event to first of all thank our guest lecturer, Fola Adeola, for a very appropriate and apt memorial lecture on public service. Thank you very much. As you all know, Oba Olashore was our first chairman of Standard Chartered Bank when Standard Chartered Bank resumed operations in 1999. For the benefit of the audience, just to remind ourselves, Standard Chartered was actually the first bank in Nigeria. We started in 1894. And it was because of the indigenization decree that Standard Chartered exited Nigeria together with Barclays Bank. And that's how First Bank of Nigeria was formed and Union Bank of Nigeria. But we were here first. And we came back in 1999 as Standard Chartered once again. And at the time, we were looking for a chairman of the board. And I think Chief Sanusi would actually be the best person to give the history of how that came about. But all I can tell you is that we ended up with Oba Olashore as the first chairman of the board of Standard Chartered Bank, Nigeria. Oba Olashore, HRM, was indeed a distinguished chairman of the bank. He was a man of deep experience, both from the regulatory perspective. He was the director of banking supervision at the central bank, and of course, a man with deep business experience in Nigeria and who understood some of the macroeconomic issues that Nigeria faced. So we couldn't have had a better chairman, first chairman of the bank, than His Royal Majesty Oba Olashore. During his time, a number of achievements were recorded. First was the fact that after Standard Chartered Bank came in 1999, followed the consolidation of the banking industry here. And the bank was compelled to increase the capital that we had to invest in Nigeria. We ended up investing $150 million additional capital that was not there when we started. That was under his stewardship. But the bank also did very well during his tenure. Profits doubled in 2005 and 2006 during his time as the chairman of the board. We also recorded substantial progress in terms of our community outreach, our CSR projects. There was a water project that we had in Port Harcourt, which was during his time. And we also did a lot of work on HIV/AIDS. As you recall, during that time, HIV/AIDS was a big challenge, health challenge, just like we have COVID-19 at this time. And all of these were areas where, as chairman of the board, he succeeded quite well. But when I was asked to give this speech, I sort of did a little bit of research about HRM Oba Olashore. One of the things that really impressed me was his focus on education and his passion for education, to the point of establishing the school, Olashore International School, in his hometown. I feel that education is the one biggest investment that you can make that can transform a society. I call education the great equalizer. It is the one aspect that knows no race, creed, background. Once you give somebody the opportunity to be educated, they can actually achieve wonderful things. And the fact that HRM Oba Olashore really dedicated his efforts and energy towards education is something that we want to really commend him for. Finally, when Abimbola reached out to me and said that we are having this 10th year memorial lecture, would Standard Chartered Bank be willing to sponsor it? It was an easy decision to make. We took it with delight, with great pleasure. And we look forward to the collaboration and to seeing this legacy live on and be stronger and stronger. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I spoke about this foundation. And for some people, they may not know. For those of us who are close to the family and the ideals that he stood for, we would like to give you a snippet, just a few minutes. I dare say that it cannot really tell you all, but you will get a gist of it. Now, if my technical crew are ready, we'd like to show you a video of the OISA Foundation.
There is no better investment of time and money than in the life of a child, and the OISA Foundation has continued to champion the cause of shaping budding game changers in education and health through its various initiatives, which is in furtherance of the mandate built by the late Oba Oladele Olashore to provide access to quality secondary education for indigent children of Iloko Ijesha, Oriade local government, and Osun State.
When the scholarships, the OISA Foundation scholarship started 5 years ago, we were carried along first to identify candidates for the scholarship through the early primary school in the local Ijesha here. That was where we started. And over the years, we have always been part of the system in selection, in assessing and giving the children the opportunity to show their skills to qualify for the scholarship.
To God be the glory. We thank God on the life spent by our late Oba Olashore, who have initiated this program. It's the initiative of this program. Though Baba has died, but the legacy he left behind is still functioning.
OISA Foundation was incorporated in 2018 to formalize and give structure to the activities that started in 2012. The OISA Foundation is a registered charity organization that works to transform lives through interventions in education and healthcare. The foundation has been the catalyst for change, especially as it concerns the awarding of scholarships to brilliant indigent children to complete secondary school education, and also on issues that concern the mental health of adolescents at school and at home. It offers scholarship opportunities for the less privileged in Oriade local government area, Osun State, enabling them to receive high-quality education in a convenient setting. Children from low-income families in Olashore International School, OIS, and the Iloko Model College, IMC, also have access to world-class education. OISA Foundation targets scholarship students to enable them become responsible members of the society who will contribute to the development of the country. Through the foundation's orientation and tutelage, students have been empowered and grown to become creative and critical thinkers who adapt easily to changing global conditions. Thus far, the foundation has initiated scholarship programs such as the Educational Scholarship Program called the Indigent Community Scholarship Scheme, encouraged by its historical mission and large donor community. The foundation also provides a comprehensive scholarship program that covers tuition and boarding expenses, which began in 2013-2014 school year. One of the first scholarship beneficiaries, Samson Adams, was awarded in 2013. He was the son of a peasant farmer. He graduated from Olashore International School in June 2019 with a score of 330 in JAMB and set the record for the highest JAMB score ever achieved by any student at Olashore International School. And now he is a recipient of another scholarship at Pan Atlantic University, Lekki, Ekpe, Lagos, where he is a third-year economics student pursuing his dream of being an economist with a CGPA of 4.90. We also have others who have successfully graduated from secondary schools and are now in the universities of their choice in Nigeria and South Africa. Currently, 9 students at OIS and 24 students at IMC benefit from the scholarship program. OISA Foundation has also expanded its cooperation areas through common projects with prestigious institutions and organizations. In its capacity, the OISA Foundation has carried out one of the best philanthropic response to the social needs in Osun State and Nigeria on the important case of mental health. The foundation rides on mental health awareness, identifies issues that affect adolescent mental health, and provides a platform for finding solutions to these problems. School-based support, knowledge management and resources, advocacy, partnerships, and annual convening are the 5 important areas the OISA Foundation has devised a 3-year strategy to focus on its activities. The foundation has also partnered with institutions and worked with professionals in the last few months to develop a mental wellness assessment toolkit, provide mental health training to over 200 caregivers, particularly teachers from schools in different states of Nigeria, to enable them promote an environment that will enhance the mental well-being of their students. The foundation furthermore trains teachers and educators to bridge the knowledge gap to foster early detection, identification, and management of mental health challenges among adolescents and fellow educators. In the months to come, the foundation is looking at developing a mental wellness assessment toolkit for schools to help students develop social and emotional competencies to deal with crises as they grow to become young adults. The toolkit will help assess their emotional health and assist with early identification of a mental health disorder. Consequently, the foundation is looking at expanding its scholarship frontiers to indigent children in other states within the country. To support and donate to this cause, contact the OISA Foundation Secretariat at Plot 281 Ajose Adeogun Street, Victoria Island, Lagos State, or call the Program Coordinator on 0807 416 5216 for more information.
It's a good investment because when you invest in lives, then you are investing in the future. And like we always say, the children of today, they are our future leaders. So giving them this opportunity, to me, is the greatest investment one can give to one's community.
Because there are so many people that are talented. They have the brain, but nobody to help. The future donors should please arise for their help.
As a young foundation, the OISA Foundation is taking firm steps forward in contributing to the future of our country and in the realization of our objectives and dreams. The foundation has remained focused on giving back to the community and aims to continually coordinate and consolidate all community development projects under a single umbrella. OISA Foundation, transforming lives.
I now have the Herculean task of introducing someone who will add some meat, as it were, to the OISA Foundation. If I seem a bit biased, please forgive me. I grew up knowing him, listening to his speeches, seeing him on television, and I am now given the honor and privilege to introduce him. How do you react when, as master of ceremony, you visit your special guest and he says to Prince Olashore, "Wow, you did very well. You are actually using him as your MC. How did you get him?" So you can imagine my bias. We have stories to tell. And many years ago, when this special guest decided to attend the law school, guess at an older age, as it were, guess who provided him with a house and a cook in Ikoyi, saying to him, "You must not fail." And he went on to top the class even at that age. He has the distinct, what I would call privilege of having a company that is over 50 years old, such that when we visited him and he was looking through his books, he kept saying something that kept confusing me. And I'm sure you would see why when he stands up. When I was 80. When I was 80. And I'm looking at this one, I'm saying, you look 69, going 70, you're 65. He's a man who has presence. He's a man who has poise. He's a man who has panache. He also happens to be a prince. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, to say a few words about the foundation, Prince Julius Adelusi Adeluyi. OFR, Chairman, Julie Pharmacy. Even before he speaks, please give him a better round of applause. At 80, sir.
And it has come to pass that 10 years after his demise, the Lord enabled resources to be put together so that his memories will go on. Thanks be to God. We also appreciate the sponsor of this program who has spoken to us. That is my friend, the Gambian head of the bank. I was asking him, your name is Banyak. You don't sound Nigerian, or maybe you're Plateau. And he said it was a Gambian. It goes to show you the outreach of the moment. It goes to show you the representative effort made in order to continue to reflect the life of our subject of honor today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must also, with or without protocol, recognize the Vice President as represented here. He's one of the few people now with a face mask. And I suppose that is also protocol. We recognize the chairman of the occasion, which you truly are, given your presentation, Chief Shanusi. You are the first person to Shanusize the central bank. Other Sanusis followed you. And of course, the handsome young man, the guest speaker, this occasion. But all this didn't just happen. The world is full of parents, but very few parents are given the grace of God to have children who would not only carry the flag, but who would lean on the dream of their parents. That's what we're seeing here today. And I want to recognize the very hard work you have all done, planning and visiting people. And that's what the MC was referring to. I'm sure you visited lots of other people that are much more relevant and important than myself. So I greet you all, especially Peju. Peju, you're there. That is Bimbo. Where is Funke? Where's Lekon? What about the twins? One bedded, one non-bedded. Taiwo and Kende. Very few parents will have the kind of setup we have here. So when they told me to come to speak about the foundation, they also said could put one or two words about the subject matter of today, the Oba Oladele Olashore. Foundations have become very popular all over the world. In fact, there are more than 260,000 foundations, still counting, worldwide. You know that when statistics are done, it's basically like a Europe, America thing. The African ones are by approximation. That's why I'm saying that there are over 260,000. And they vary in age, in range, but the subject matter, globally speaking, boils down to assisting those who are underprivileged. I'm particularly impressed that this foundation has decided to make an impact in the area of leadership education and also health, mental health. You know, in Nigeria today, many people are really crazy, but only few are walking the streets. That's a very, very sad description of our nation. Apart from the fact that people say Nigeria is an underdeveloped country and everybody is rushing around to make a living outside Nigeria. So whoever can help at the individual level should be able so to do through foundations existing. And it is my recommendation that you should read more about this foundation and take this out of your programs and at some stage fill it up and make an input. The foundation may not be as big as the Bill Gates one with $52 billion in its kitty, but there are many foundations in Nigeria that also look up to the cadre of foundations like the Olashore Foundation. I look around and I see to myself that Oba Olashore will be smiling now down to each and every one of us. If he was in charge of forming this, he would have done as usual a lot of homework. He would have brought everybody bringable, and he would, as usual, achieve success because he always has this, what the Americans call the stick-to-itiveness. We all talk about the poverty of Nigeria, but nothing seems to be done about it, which reminds me of the story of the young man who left Nigeria for the shores of Great Britain, looked for work, couldn't find. Finally, somebody says, there's only one job we can offer you, and that's to be in our zoo, working as a gorilla. And he said, how can that be? Prince, this, that. Nobody listened to him. When hunger visited him, he went back and took up that job. And he found it was easy. I mean, all you have to do is dress like a monkey, people throw things at you. But so he was enjoying it so much at some stage. He was diving here, diving there, impressing the crowd, and more money came to him. One day, of course, he died so beautifully that he hit the next door. And the next door opened. There was, ooh, a lion. And of course, he said, Mugbe. And of course, the lion said, Farabale, Farabale. I'm also a Nigerian. Now, here you are, laughing at that. The reality on the ground is not far from that. And everything must be done, not only talking to government, by us individually to make the situation better. Faith Foundation, other foundations, individual level, helping just one man, one person makes all the difference. It's like the child at the seashore. A deluge of swept up fish was on that shore, and he kept on throwing one by one back into the sea. Some old gray-bearded man comes and says, you must waste your time. There are thousands, and it doesn't make a difference. And the poor boy said, it makes a difference to this one that I'm throwing back. So you don't have to be the biggest or oldest foundation. Some foundations are as old as 14th, 15th century, the Associated, the Philanthrope in France, and so on. You can mention all this. But here, you can make a difference. So you're not too poor to make a difference by contributing, nor would you be too rich, provided you don't buy up all our shares for the foundation. Now, I believe that if anybody merits to have a foundation in his name, it's got to be Olashore. Many of you are known friends of Olashore, but I'm only a private friend of Olashore. So we dealt with private philosophical matters. And my own knowledge of Olashore, you may say all these nice things about Olashore, this is that, but my own view of him may be slightly different. He was like any of us. He had problems, he had challenges, unexpected. But he was guided by a few things. One, and I think all of us can profit from his style of life. Both of us exchanged. In fact, he had this printed in his office. Two things he had printed in his office. One was a rotary international four-way test. When you want to decide, when you want to talk about anything, when you want to act on anything, look at the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Is it beneficial to all concerned? If it is yes to those four questions, go ahead and do it. And I'm happy that with our relationship, I brought His Royal Majesty into Rotary. And he was not just somebody who was a Rotarian in name. He put that four-way test to action whenever he was employing people, whenever he was making decisions and so on. But far beyond that was what both of us used like a catechism for our life. And that's that as long as we're in this life, you must follow your instinct. That's number one. Follow your instinct. He followed his instinct. Many options come to you, but your instinct says, this is it. You must also make sure that you believe in some force higher. That's why in his book, Joy of Service, the very first chapter in that book is the role of God in his life. All of us here must recognize the role of God in our lives. And that's what put him through. I also said to him that it was important for him to move at his own pace. In this life, there's a lot of temptation to change your lane and follow the so-called success story. But he stayed on his lane. He also, of course, bonded with his family, which is what friend here was talking about. Most people succeed at the expense of family. But he didn't. And I'm looking for Elizabeth. She's not here. Elizabeth Kondupe is the wife, and we had many good times together. Here's an Elizabeth who would hear that the husband is already in Belgium and so on. But she patiently tended the family. Success without family success doesn't last. When you do that, you see the results that we have here. And they're now trying to lean on the dream of the dad. As you are doing for dad, may God also do for you. And for all of us who are here. We also said it was important to feel free to mingle with people. Don't be too special. You are not special. Mix with anybody. Have the common touch. And also to try to lead a balanced life. All these things we both believe in quietly. I don't talk to people on big league. I talk to them what touches them. And therefore, finally, you must try to find happiness in all situations. Situations are very challenging. And if you get all this together, both the four-way test and what we call the eight-way test, you can move into this world with equanimity, with contentment, and with gratitude to God. The next thing is that the life of Oba Olashore reminds me of somebody called Doris Day. Doris Day in 1956 sang a song, Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. Now, you're not resigning to fate like the Fate Foundation. But you are saying to yourself, since you have a belief in a higher entity, you try your best in every situation. You make yourself ready for any option, so that when the worst comes, you can face it. When the best comes, you can accommodate it. Que sera, sera. And it was that mentality that helped your father to live through embarrassing situations. Like when he was at the JB restaurant eating his beans, and he got this telephone call from Dodon Barracks saying you are sacked. Here's a man with the box of First Bank, and he was sacked without notice. That can send anybody crazy. But if you have those 8-way tests, you have contentment, you have gratitude, and you say, Que sera, sera. The best will come. The same government invited him a few years later to be Minister of Finance. If it happened to him, it can happen to any of us. And I say to you, my dear brothers and sisters, that he touched my life. Somebody has told a story about my studying law in law school. What really happened was that I was there as an old man. I was probably the oldest person there. But some 3 young ladies in front were speaking equal, one to the other, looking at the results of the year before. And there was one general, whose name I will not mention, who was merely on the pass list. And those girls who were talking to him said, oh, these old people, now buy let my people go. So I left the place and came to your father and said, that's my experience today. Please make sure that I pass. Let's pray about it together. And he followed me. 3 weeks to the time we were going to have the exam, he gave me that place along Gerard Road, the property of really took care of me. So the results that they call the best result is not for me, it was for you. And he knew that. The same thing happened when my company was going public. I had no advisor, I had to run to him. When I became district governor of Rotary, it was a tough thing. I first of all turned him into a Rotarian. So he moved with me from conference to conference. So, you know, it has affected my life, but I say to you, I'm still one of the private friends. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe you are here today for a purpose. I believe it's right for you to support a man of purpose, a man who always makes a difference wherever he has been. Look at Iloko. Iloko, from what you people claim, it was started as a village in 1113 AD. That's a long time ago. But if you ask anybody where is Iloko, Ilo what? But then your father got there and made a difference. Earlier on, he was in the central bank, he made a difference. He was in IBWA, he made a difference. He was in First Bank, he made a difference. And he went to a local. Any of you thinking that he went to a local to go and start a school may be wrong. Listen to his story. As far as, from the discussions we had, as far as he was concerned, he wanted to go through banking and maybe start a farm, right? And start a petrol station. He was so keen about those two things, especially petrol station, because getting to a local, you run out of gas. But then he was sacked. He was sacked before the maturity of his thinking. So he goes back to a local. And the godly side of him made him to start a church. If you can remember, the Methodists were the ones looming large. He was Anglican. I was at the foundation of that church. The church then grows. So one morning, he was looking around and found a big space and said to himself, a school will be good here. And that's why you have OIS. And I believe that it is the Que sera, sera thing that led him on. May the Lord lead you on in this difficult Nigeria, each and every one of you. Nigeria is difficult too. Even those who are successful and not enjoying it. I was going to talk to my friend here, my brother. You have a beautiful car made for the smooth roads of London, and you are able to buy it, and you buy it, and you bring it here. All you need to do is try to drive it. Just 4 kilometers from wherever you are. And something in the car will be telling you, go to the next mechanic, go to the next. Except that here, there is no next mechanic. So it's a difficult terrain. Those of you who are here by the grace of God. Now, finally, I want to tell you that there's nothing as good as giving back. What will matter at the end is not all the material things we have, but the moment when we care, the moment when we share, the moment when we touch lives of people. That's what is going to matter. Therefore, I say to you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is good for you to support this. In 1967, somebody called Louis Satchmo Armstrong sang a song called "What a Wonderful World." Nigeria will be wonderful again. Nigeria will be great again. If foundations like this are supported, Nigeria will be great again. All of us will enjoy happiness. If we took off some moment to care, to share, and no matter what our position, rich, poor, or ordinary, to touch the life of others, because no matter how poor you are, somebody is poorer. No matter how rich you are, somebody is richer. That's the balance of life. And when we care, we share, we touch lives, we'll be enjoying contentment and gratitude to God. As we do all these things, as we also participate in this program, may God help us.
I would also like to re-recognize in our midst the presence of General Ike Nwachukwu, GCMG, CFR, MNI. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to please call on you. Time is fast spent. So please say a few words about our dearly departed who were here celebrating Oba Oladele Olashore. Round of applause, please.
I think to myself, I see skies of blue.
The family of Oba Olashore, the representative of the Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to have been invited to this very memorable occasion in honor of a dear friend and a brother. As a young lieutenant in Kano in the early 60s, painting the town red, I ran into this handsome man who worked with British Petroleum as accountant in Kano. And thereafter, we became friends. The most impressive place in Kano those days was the officers' mess of 5th Battalion Nigerian Army, Bukavu Barracks. So everyone in Kano of any worth, it came to the officers' mess.
So he was always with us at the officers' mess. Ojukwu then, of course, was our commanding officer. Through him, I met Alhaji Aremu Otiti, who was the agent of Central Bank in Kano. From then on, Oba Olashore and me and other members of our battalion were always delighted to be in each other's companies, and we discussed a number of things, including the country at the time. Never mind that there hadn't been a coup in the country. In later years, as we all moved on in life, we again met when he had become the inspector of, the banking inspector at the CBN, and now have been posted to Lagos to the Supreme Headquarters. So we carried on as we did. He got married before me, obviously. I got married later, and so my wife Gwendolyn here got to know him also. Now, when he eventually became the monarch in Iloko, we visited him ever so often from Abuja at the time. I'd become foreign minister, and I would come to visit whenever he had something to do. Now, Oba Olashore is a man of integrity, a man of tremendous discipline, a man who understood that humanity is the very essence of whatever else you do in life. If you're unable to improve humanity, then you're a failure. Oba Olashore, kind-hearted, caring, understanding, and a true Nigerian. One of his best friends that I knew was late Ismaila Sambo, and late Saleh Jambo. Now, Oba Olashore was not a tribalist. He was a true Nigerian, like I said. So here's the man who related to everyone based on your merit and on your character. Today, we're celebrating him. And we have a country which is so divided along tribal, ethnic, religious lines. It is so piteous that the work that our parents had done in coalescing Nigeria is falling apart at the time when my generation is still here operating. We, my generation, owe this country an apology because we hadn't carried on truly what our parents handed over to us. That is building a united country where there's no cause for being, whether you're Yoruba or Igbo or Ijaw or Shekeri or whatever tribe you belong to. It's your humanity, who you are, that's the basis that you will take one on and for. Therefore, Oba Olashore represented that greatness that we all want here, a true Nigerian where ethnicity, religiosity, or whatever that is dividing us today shouldn't be there. We pray that your generation coming after us would correct the mistakes we made and build a country that we'll all be proud of. And God bless Oba Olashore and your family.
Thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming to the lectern, Chief Mrs. Nike Akonde.
Thank you very much, MC. I will not take more than 3 minutes. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on existing protocol because of time constraint. I have a lot of people that I know here I would have loved to recognize properly, but because of the time constraint, please permit me. First, let me commend the family of His Royal Majesty and the OISA Foundation for this memorial lecture in honor of a great Nigerian, my mentor. Late Kabiyesi was a great achiever with unbelievable humility. He has touched many lives in many positive ways, including mine, and I will explain. He was held in high esteem in his lifetime. He was a principled and upright man who stood for the truth at all times, even at great cost to him. I'm referring to the First Bank issue. He exemplified high moral standards, integrity, hard work, selfless service, excellence, and patriotism. He was a quintessential professional, an astute banker, and a great philanthropist. He believed in giving back to the community, as demonstrated by the establishment of Olashore International School in Loko, Ijesha. I have visited the school, and I know that the school is one of the best secondary schools in Nigeria. Thank you, please clap, because I have visited the place, and I know that he believes in education. He also founded a lead group during his tenure as finance minister. Nigeria had excellent economic management. The microeconomic environment was stable. The currency had value, and inflation was under control. This was very beneficial to investors. His life was a great symbol of service and honor. As I mentioned earlier, he has touched my life in a positive way. I would like to acknowledge publicly that he nominated me to the boards of Nikon Insurance and also NIDB, now Bank of Industry. He was my mentor. He monitored my progress in life. And he even visited me when I was doing a postgraduate course at Harvard in Boston. I owe a lot to the family of Oba Olashore. I will remain eternally grateful to him. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the family of Oba Olashore and the OISA Foundation for this memorial lecture. Congratulations, and may God give you more grace to do important things for us in life. And may his gentle soul continue to rest in perfect peace. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ma. At this time, I would like to move on very swiftly and call on His Excellency, Professor Yemi Oshimbajo, SANGCON, ably represented by Mr. Dapo Akinoshun, SAN, to give the address of the Vice President.
Says, it gives me great pleasure to join you all here today for this memorial lecture, which draws inspiration from the exemplary life of Oba Oladele Olashore, CON. In the last 10 years since the Oba's transition to glory, you have carried on his legacy with such grace, effectiveness, and enduring impact, a testament to the chain of good one life of genuine leadership and service can set off. As we speak, there are over 100 children without prior access to quality education who today stand on the knowledge and exposure gained as beneficiaries of your scholarships and projects to reach for a better life. A great majority of them will go on to change the world they live in and lift up many others, and they will never forget the example you have set for them. Oba Olashore will be mighty proud. The theme of today's lecture is as resonant as it is urgent. In the last 3 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the ruptures of our delicate socioeconomic and political order. The widening inequalities of our world and the evolving threat they pose to our lives and stability have never been more stark. This yawning gap between the swelling mass of despair and the shrinking pool of elites is one begging to be filled with leadership. And all over the world, leadership is beleaguered, overwhelmed by the flurry of problems it daily has to contend with, weakened and beholden in most cases to narrow interest groups invested in preserving their personal wealth, influence, and agendas. There is a sense in which we must first redeem leadership from the encumbrances that limit its effectiveness today, if we are to deal with the challenges confronting us on every level. But to redeem leadership, we must first redefine it in the light of its most central and simplest duty: to serve. Leadership is service. After it's all said and done, and the entire value of our lives will be summed up in the impact we had in the lives of other people using the time, emotional and material resources available to us. If there's any one thing the recent pandemic also fiercely brought to light, it is that we are all bound by the same destiny, and we owe a duty of mutual care and concern for one another. We are stewards of each other's welfare. I must view the privileges accorded me by virtue of my position or proximity to resources as being held in trust for others. This is what it means to be human and what it means to be a leader. It is to be acutely uncomfortable with the suffering of others and to be compelled to act towards its alleviation because we are suffering, because the suffering of one is the suffering of all. By all indications, we cannot afford to continue as before. We need a new culture of leadership if we are to face the challenges of the coming years with equanimity and success. No child anywhere in the world should have to go to bed hungry. None should have to be uncertain of their future because they have no access to quality education or opportunities for realizing their potential. And it falls on all of us, those privileged with positions of leadership or authority in the public or private sectors, and those privileged with access to wealth. The life and legacy of Oba Olashore provides a clear template for leadership in this regard. He was a man whose encompassing concern for the welfare and dignity of others, and whose far-reaching vision for a better world drove his extensive philanthropic contributions in education and health, establishing institutions whose indelible impact has continued to enrich the lives of so many, even long after his exit from this world. This is a great example and one we must remember today as we redouble our commitment to carry it forward. But leadership is not only within the purview of the privileged, it is a character, a posture of being, a way of seeing and relating to each other, not as competitors for scarce resources, but as individuals whose common destiny can only be fulfilled by actively looking out for each other in service. It is in the everyday acts of kindness, of putting each other first, of radical service to one another, that we find the most potent examples of leadership. And this affects everything. It affects how we distribute wealth, how well we listen to each other, how better we tolerate our differences in tribe or language or religion. Living a life committed to the service of other people does not diminish us, but enriches us. If we teach our children to abide by this, if you and I, in our daily dealings and interaction, wherever we find ourselves abide by this, then we will be leading the most successful revolution of all time. Leaders don't fall from the sky, they come from among us. And if they come into position from a culture of service, they will lead with service. If they come into position from a culture of one-upmanship, they will lead with a mindset of scarcity and greed. We can change the culture of leadership by changing how we relate to each other in the seemingly mundane details of everyday life. Service is a revolutionary act. As we join the Olashore International School Association Foundation in remembering the legacy of its founder, let us also remember to challenge ourselves to further the good work they have carried on in the last 10 years by extending our support in cash and in kind. There are a few things as transformative as giving a child access to quality education or as providing quality health care to the most vulnerable of us. The foundation's interventions are groundbreaking in the impact they have on the lives of extraordinary Nigerians otherwise caught in the limiting circumstances. Let us join them in breaking these limitations and helping the great people of Nigeria rise to their full potential. Thank you for listening, and God bless the Olashore International School Association Foundation.
Thank you. Mr. Dapo Akinonsu, representing the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has given a speech. At this time, I'd like to invite to give the vote of thanks my friend and my brother, Prince Abimbola Olashore. Vote of thanks, please. Please give him a round of applause. He's done an amazing one with the foundation.
Thank you very much. This is the last event that has been planned to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the passing of our late dad, Oba Oladele Olashore. The following institutions he was associated with in his lifetime had earlier organized various events, starting from the 1st of June, where we had an evening of tributes that was organized by the local traditional council and the people of the local. We had an event on the 2nd of June, which was the final of an Olashore football competition and a reception that was organized by a local model college. On the 4th of June, we had a Vision Day program organized by Olashore International School. On the 10th of June, we had a memorial lecture that was organized by Joseph Ayobabalola University of Osun State, where he was our first chancellor. And finally, on the 11th of June, we had an Thanksgiving service by the Anglican Diocese of Idisha North, where he was the first grand patron of the diocese. This is, however, an event that speaks more to his life, his accomplishments, and also recognizing what he had done in Lagos and also how it had impacted lives. So it is on that note that I first of all recognize the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, ably represented by Mr. Dapo Akioshu, SAN. Thank you very much. And as we say, all other protocols duly. Thank you very much. Therefore, on behalf of the trustees of OISA Foundation and my siblings and the Olashore Royal Family of Iloko-Ijesa, I wish to thank the following. And I think I'll start with those who are probably absent, if you don't know. The date of today, the 20th of June, to all this memorial lecture is due to one particular person. He's not here today. And that is General Abdusalam Abubakar, the former head of state. When we were planning this event, we went to him and we said, we are looking at this program, which is in honor of your friend. And immediately he said, oh, he wanted to be part of it. So the question was now timing. We said he passed away on the 1st of June. So we'd like to have a program within the first 1 week. We spoke on the phone. He came to Lagos and we went to see him and he brought out his diary. And he said, there's a problem. On the 13th of June will be my 80th birthday. I will be traveling abroad and I'll be back for the 13th of June. So is it possible to have the program after the 13th? And he also now noted, because he said, look, any date you pick. But he said also make sure you don't go into July because obviously they will have the Muslim holiday and he might not be around. So we both agreed on Monday, the 20th of June, a week after his own 80th birthday. Regrettably, he had to he wrote the family a letter about a month after we've gone far to now say, unfortunately, he won't be able to travel to Lagos on this day because of medical reasons. So he is more responsible for the 20th of June. And we thank God that he actually picked the 20th, because if not, we'll have had it a week ago. For those who are in Iloko last week, Saturday, and saw the rain that came in, I think it's a good thing we picked today. And it's on that note again, I give thanks to Almighty God for the good weather that we've had today that's enabled all of us to be here. Another person that is not here today is Ambassador Shehu Malami, CON, who was supposed to chair the occasion. His own also was a case of, we picked a date, he was vice chairman of Standard Chartered Bank when Kabesi was the chairman. And he also said, oh, clearly anything for Kabesi, he'll come to Lagos and participate. Again, for logistical reasons, he himself could not be here, but it's good to acknowledge their role in planning this particular event. So I'll now go to those who are here, and I will start with our keynote speaker, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and to thank his representative, Mr. Dapo Akioshu, for a wonderful speech. I think I will acknowledge and say you did a job well done for the speech that you delivered. To our guest lecturer, Mr. Fola Diola, his was quite interesting. When the school was 25 years of age, I went to see him and I said, we'll be doing a lecture and I would like him to deliver a speech at the lecture, at the occasion. And I said it is to draw on his experience as the founder of Faith Foundation, because as a school, we believe so much in giving back. And he also agreed. Unfortunately, he had to travel, so he could not honor that invitation. So naturally, when we extended this invitation to him to give his speech, I think he simply had no choice. Because if he had said he cannot make it, I will take it as enemy action. I will go, Egbon, what is going on? Is it that you don't want to associate with us anymore? Because I personally have very fond memories of him when I was running Lead Bank. Once a year, I'll go and see him at Guarantee Trust Bank where he was the MD, and it was the annual ritual. And he'll call me and I'll sit down with him and he will give me tips and advice on how things should go. And I remember when he was going to leave as the MD of Guarantee Trust, he did something which I can never forget. He said, how well do you know Tayo? That was the DMD. I said, oh, I know Mr. Ekun quite well. He said, no, you don't know him. Because I was speaking to Tayo, you don't know him. And he did something very interesting. He said, if you want to get anything from me or from GTB or you want to have an association, what you have is with Fola Adiola, you don't have with what? Guarantee Trust Bank. And I think it's good for you to have that relationship. And he walked across to Tayo's office. Went in there and just said, Tayo, do you know Bimbo? And I was like, we know each other now. He sat down and I sat down. You know what he did? He stood up and he left. And he left both of us. So both of us were now forced to form a bond. And I think that also created a bond between Lead Bank and Guarantee Trust Bank, and between myself and Mr. Aderioko till he passed on. So for that, I'm always so grateful for that. For our special guests, our fathers, Chief Dr. Joseph Sanusi and Prince Julius Adeloye. I think for the two of you again, I can say you simply also don't have any choice than to be here. I know the relationship we have with my dad, and clearly anything we do, we know we cannot leave you out of it. I must thank you for the warmth and how you've accepted and took us on as we are planning these events. And the way you also spoke, you gave color and credence to some of the things that we spoke about. It is quite different if we have an occasion like this and you cannot draw on those that are associated with KBC to also pass to us. I think for those of us, again, in the younger generation, to see the true essence of friendship and to see the true essence of loyalty. I must really thank you for your kind words and for being loyal to your friend and also being loyal to his family. And that I do thank you very much. Our other speakers, Chief Mrs. Nike Akonde, General Ikewachuku, and Professor Bolaji Akiemi that refused to say a few things. But I can excuse Professor Akiemi because he did something for us. After KBC passed, and I was looking for a speaker at Olashore International School at what we call the Founders Day ceremony, I reached out to him and immediately accepted to come to Iloko to deliver a speech to the students. The Founders Day ceremony is one that was coined where we look for elder statesmen of Nigeria to come and address the younger generation, for them just to learn and to understand what Nigeria is all about. On that particular occasion that he came, he was not supposed to be in Iloko. And his phone kept on buzzing. For those that knew at that time, he had a national assignment on the national conference, and he was needed in Abuja. And he told them he had to be in Iloko. And he was being told from Abuja that what's happening in Iloko, that you cannot give up. And instead, you should be in Abuja for the national conference, for where he was the vice chairman. Again, for your loyalty to your friend, I thank you very much. He came to Iloko, spent the night with us, and from there he left for Abuja. And sometimes these are some of the lessons we learn from our older ones, even to we younger ones. The price of loyalty and the fact that when you give your word, please try and stick to it. So many times you see people that break their word for reasons that you ask yourself, if only they know much better. Relationships are things that last for a long time. I'll now come to our sponsor, Standard Chartered Bank. And as the MD said, Mr. Manjang said, when I wrote to him and said, Standard Chartered, we are doing something, and for us, It's something that has to do with the foundation. You know that if you have a foundation and you are doing fundraising, you cannot spend the money you raise in any occasion on the occasion. So we have a problem. As a family, we too believe that any money we are putting down, let's put it straight to the beneficiaries. And immediately they rose to the occasion. All they did was to please send us an estimate of how much you believe this will cost. We sent them an estimate and they did not deduct 1 penny from it. Credited our account with the sum that was agreed, and on top of it, we forgot about branding. This is all they now took upon themselves to also go ahead, do this stage, and also brand this all. So please, a round of applause for Standard Chartered Bank. My training as a banker did not allow me to now index the amount that I put there in line with inflation. So they credited the amount that I gave to them when we were doing a budget about 4 or 5 months ago. But as you know how things have happened. But I must also thank FSD Merchant Bank. They also now turned up much later and said, if you are doing anything of this nature, please, we also want to contribute. And they also contributed towards this. So I must thank those two institutions that have made this very possible. In the letter we wrote to all our guests, when we were announcing that we're having a lecture, there was a paragraph that we put in the last month. We now said, we'll use that opportunity of the lecture to what I call reintroduce the OISA Foundation. When I look around the room, a lot of us here have been contributing towards that foundation. But we just felt we can't do an occasionally without also just talking about the foundation. I made it very clear, it's not meant to be a fundraising. We're not going to come up and say, please, if you do things. We just simply let people know what you're doing. Most of you do know what we've been up to, but please, we always seek for support. But what has now happened in the past couple of weeks, we've started receiving contributions towards that endowment fund that we spoke about. Again, I must mention some of their names here, because I can mention, and in particular, I must really thank the banking industry for coming to the fore. So we already have initial contributors to that endowment fund. On that note, I must thank Sterling Bank PLC. I must thank First Bank of Nigeria. I must thank Providence Bank PLC. And I must also thank FSD Merchant Bank. Apart from paying and contributing towards hosting this event, they also sent us a check into the endowment fund. So I really must thank those institutions for what they are doing. But like I've been warning them, foundation business is one that never ends. Whatever you do this year, I'll be back again next year. So whatever figure you are giving to me, just make sure it's something that you can do on an annual basis. When you send a child to school, it's a 6-year commitment. So please bear that in mind. So I can only just solicit your support towards that. In closing, I must thank the organizers, those who have really made things happen. What we've done is a labor of love. For those who are involved, it's not about how much we had to pay the service providers. All of them came in more like we must do something to support this. So I must thank the event planners, Belola Statements, led by Mrs. Fumi Popola. I must have seen her walking around. Thank you very much. I must thank my brother, the Master of Ceremony, Mr. Akishemo. In his own case, when we say who will be MC, I said we know who the MC will be. We call ourselves Central Bank children. You know, it's just amazing what has happened. In the early 70s, there were 2 blocks of flats on LCFM Piers in Victoria Island. So for about 5-6 years, we all lived as neighbors. And what happened was that Central Bank will send a bus and we carry all we kids and take us around to all our various primary schools. That time we were all in primary school. And the fun of it was always the debate that the bus driver, who should be the last person the bus driver should drop, because nobody wants to be the first one off the bus. Because of the camaraderie that we usually have, it was quite a joy. Akin was one of us. So it was quite useful that we called him and said, look, you are the one that can probably talk much more. And I think he's done a wonderful job. Unfortunately for him, the balance of his money is going to go towards the foundation. I am sure he'll be too embarrassed to get a check from a foundation to pay him for services. So please, a round of applause for him, please. I must also thank two other people. You see, sometimes there are people working behind the scene that you don't normally see. One of them is Mr. Jafet Kupola. I've inherited him. He was KBC's personal assistant, and 10 years on, he's still with us as a family, still working behind the scene, still getting things done. And finally, Tolu Owabunwa. She you'll get to know as time goes on. She's the program coordinator of the OISA Foundation. I think she's been telling me, I'm not sure, I think you said that as officer. I said, I'm no longer officer, I'm now coordinator. I'm from coordinator. I said, so there are actually stages as you move up. But she's the one in charge of the foundation, and probably she's the one that will get in touch with all of you as we go on. Finally, a big thank you to all our distinguished invited guests for honoring our invitation. We must apologize, time is really well spent. I really must thank you for collaborating with us to celebrate the life of our dear father, Kabesi Oba Olashore. To us, it was a life of service. It was a life of purpose. It was a life of impact. And finally, it was a life worthy of emulation. Thank you very much.
Can we have some photo ops, please? I would, yes, with the representative of the Vice President. Standard Chartered Bank and Board of Directors here present, please. We're having photos with our special guests here present.